generation gaps to things that people just simply don't understand or don't catch their ear. There are many reasons why we hate something that's associated with music. So here we have 10 heavy metal bands, either that or something associated with the genre that people tend to love to hate. We start with number 10, we start with Opeth. This is a band that has really incurred this wrath a little bit more recently in their career, but it was present beforehand. Whenever Opeth decided to release Heritage and Pale Communion, there was a dividing line within their own community based around the really large difference in sound, even though they had released Damnation about 10 years prior, which definitely exhibited a prog rock sound as opposed to their traditional progressive death metal approach. However, this was something that definitely divided the current fans. But before then, there were a lot of reasons why people hated Opeth, mainly because they felt it was exceptionally repetitive and was music that really wasn't going too much of anywhere. These are typically people that embrace virtuosity, either that or feel that they need a little bit more from a 10-minute long song than a couple of riffs with some transition and some vocals that transition from both death to clean. Number 9, we have Slayer. Slayer is a band that has a fierce and fighting fan base, one that has definitely not been immune to a lot of criticism. This is something that has happened ever since Slayer's transition into the second portion of their career, something that we will explore mightily in the Slayer discography. As Slayer's music started to not resemble the classics such as Rain in Blood or South of Heaven or Seasons in the Abyss, the fan base started to shift, and new people that were coming along and trying out Slayer for the first time with these new records were not understanding what the hype was. Either way, this started a fierce battle between the fans and those that were the detractors, and this is something that still happens to this day. It's something that's also one of the fiercest rivalries that is out there, considering Slayer fans are similar to other fan bases like Pantera and are very, very dedicated to their product. Number 8, we have Emmure, a new band that has already derived the bane of so many individuals based around their style. This is a style of music that's a bit along the lines of metal or deathcore, but reminds a lot of people of a name that we may explore later, and that is the caricature of Fred Durst and the band Limp Biskit. Once dubbed the Limp Biskit of metal by some writers, this is a band that has incurred all of the bane based around the fact that that was a pretty fair comparison. There's a lot of things about this music that resembles that statement beautifully, and the fans have certainly erupted. What doesn't help is Frankie Palmieri's attitude and the way in which he goes about really trying to promote his band. He's also had a series of mishaps that has made him out to look like the fool that many people believe that he is. This is a fan base that is either derived from very passionate fans or a lot of detractors that tend to like to see this band fail. Number 7, we have AC/DC. This is a classic band that's been around for more than 40 years and is nearing the end of their career. However, a lot of the bane and a lot of the reasons to hate this band started after their biggest breakthrough. After Back in Black, many people conceived that a lot of the albums that AC/DC were outputting were sounding kind of similar to Back in Black, almost as though they're trying to recapture that magic with each passing album and falling short each and every time. This has led to fierce comparison to a band such as Nickelback from this day and age, where they're essentially just manufacturing the same album over and over again with very little variety. However, it needs to be understood that one of the principal reasons that there was a difference was because of a brand new vocalist and a kind of a brand new lease. There are a lot of fans that still will prefer the Bon Scott era over the Brian Johnson era. There will be combat and there will be words exchanged based around that fact alone. But the repetition and the feeling that each AC/DC song that has been manufactured since sounds the same as Back in Black is one of the key contention points and one of the things that gets a lot of people's blood boiling. Number 6, we have Dream Theater. This is a battle between progressive virtuosity and those that feel that it's just overabundance of ridiculosity. This is a fan base that definitely has a lot of enemies based around the fact that their band loves to take songs to the next level. It likes to turn what some people would feel should be better off said in 4 to 5 minutes into 15 to 20 minute long progressive metal opuses. This is really the battle of the narrowly thought versus the battle of the overly thinking, where everything that the narrowly thinkings believe could be accomplished within the first movement of the song, the overthinkers believe perhaps was never left unsaid even after the 15-minute long periods. Not to mention the narrowly minded are also the ones that feel that this explorative nature of their instrumentalization, this virtuosity has jack and shit to do with the fact that they're world-class musicians, but it is just them, quote-unquote, jacking off all over their instruments. Either way, this is a fan base that continuously is under attack from the detractors, and it's one that has to defend themselves for their favorite band's sake on the constant. Number 5, we have black metal. You could really pinpoint some of the first wave bands. You can also pinpoint the Corpse Paint. This is a band, and this is a subgenre of music that definitely gets a lot of grief based around the style of music that's played, based around the lyricism, and just based around the overall mystique of it in general. Whenever you're writing songs that have a lot of satanic overlord to them, whenever you have Corpse Paint on and your forefathers in the genre burnt down churches, there's going to be a ton of detractors, especially those of the religious platform. However, this is also one where a lot of these people will not even touch this music, so they have very little to know about what it's even about in general, or what it even sounds like. Not to mention, a lot of these folks also like another band that wore corpse paint and just sang songs about love or whatever the hell they wanted to, and a band called Kiss that easily could be another band that people love to hate based around the fact that in spite of the theatrics and the spectacle of their shows, they were kind of just a basic rock band that didn't have much, lust to them. Overall, black metal gets a lot of bad press based around the antics of their followers, and that's exactly what they want. Crotch Duster famously once said that they weren't cool enough to play Dungeons & Dragons, the black metal kids, and that nobody likes them. Number 4, we have Avenged Sevenfold, a modern band that definitely picks up a lot of the bane based around not only their fan base, but also the band members themselves. This is a group that has a little bit of a streak in them where they showcase their confidence, they showcase their abilities, and it's something that drives a lot of people freaking crazy. This is a band that also has a die-hard core fan base, one that definitely takes their love of their group to almost obscene and absurd levels. And you couple these two things together, and you definitely get a lot of people that don't like this band for either one of those two reasons, and you're almost leaving the music out of the equation. These are individuals that will not like the music based around the fact that they feel it's a too simplistic form of metal, even though it could be very easily comparable to some of the thrash products that you got after the Black Album was released by Metallica. So it is definitely comparable to metal and is within the constructs of the subgenre. But this is also a band that, based around the larger-than-life personalities and now the advent of social media, has gotten a lot of flack, a lot of detractors, but also a lot of fans to come to their aid based around the fact that we are now a global community, which also means global wars, fans versus non-fans, tons of fun for everyone. Number 3, and a band that's probably thankful that the internet had just started whenever they got big, Limp Biskit. Limp Biskit, if they were alive and well during the social media age and releasing albums such as Significant Other or $3 Bill, y'all would no doubt be higher up on this list and considered to be perhaps public enemy number 1. However, one of the main reasons why Limp Biskit gets all of their bane and all of their hate is based around the fact that Fred Durst just seems like a hell of a whiny douche. This is a guy whose larger-than-life personality paints him out to be some sort of renegade badass who walked through the halls just screaming that he didn't give a fuck what people thought. But then whenever you hear him whine, you start to realize that the reason why he's whining is because secretly he cared a whole hell of a lot. He really cared a lot. The one thing that can also be stated about this band is that their most recent album, Gold Cobra, exposed the fact that Fred is still, mentally 13 years old. Fans of this band will continue to love them not only for nostalgia, but also considering it was something that helped them, quote-unquote, get through hard times. This is an argument that we have been hearing a lot ever since. Those that hate the band hate Fred Durst's larger-than-life personality. They feel that he's one of the worst things that ever came to be in the music business, a toxin of sound, and should have never been allowed to have a deal. Number 2, we have the battle between classic bands and new bands. And this is something that has been recent, this is something that has been memed, it's been made fun of, it's been crusaded about. However, it's something that's very real. This is the generation gap that we speak about. Back whenever the thrash metal and the early incantations of death metal were coming into the fold, a lot of the old music from the 70s and the 60s was being forgotten. They went through their own crusade, and now those same groups are going through the crusade on the other end. Now we have fans of newer bands of the heavy metal persuasion that will only listen to bands from a certain decade, usually the 2000s or later. And this is also something where they will ignore the classics from the 1980s and the 1990s, feeling that they are not even qualified to be metal or they're dad metal. Yeah, a lot of this has been memed and parodied to death, but there are a significant number of individuals out there that legitimately still feel this way. Not to mention, you have a lot of people that are listening to the classics that are not accepting of the new based around their love of the classics. So now what we have are two people going back and forth, defending both sides, but refusing to do anything on the contrary and actually sample something from each other's day and age, or accepting it whatsoever. Definitely one of the most annoying battles that you're going to find. It's prevalent all over social media, and it's something that you may even come across in a basement whenever there's enough weed toked around where people decide that they want to start to get philosophical on music. And number one, we have Metallica. Metallica is a band that was praised to the high heavens until they released the Black Album, and then the criticism started to flow in. Load and Reload came out, and the criticism became even larger. Saint Anger came out, and the criticism exploded. This is a band that is often criticized based around their forgetting of their core sound. Even after they attempted to revitalize that with Death Magnetic, it was only followed up by the tragedy that was Lulu. This is a band that will get a shitload of bad cred based around these albums, not to mention Lars Ulrich's involvement in the Napster debacle. You couple those two things together, you have some kind of monster really showcase James to be a weak-willed pussy, even though he was just going through rehab at the time, and you consider the myriad of other arguments, including the ones that state that Lars Ulrich should have died whenever Cliff Burton did, as opposed to Cliff dying, which is insensitive by its own right, and you see why Metallica is one of the biggest bands that people love to hate. It's so bad that the people who hate the band actually cause other people to hate the people who hate the band. It's crazy, but that's how it works. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. 10 bands, 10 movements, 10 styles of music that people just tend to love to hate. If you like this and other lists that are on this channel, definitely like it and subscribe it, and we will see you next time whenever we talk about another 10 things. Later.